Obenna Erojikwe, and I am the chairman of the board of the Institute of the MBA Institute of Continuing Legal Education. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's training session. As mentioned earlier, we're experiencing a bit of a technical issue with the speaker's system, and we're trying to resolve it at the back end. We'll encourage you to be patient whilst we resolve this. In the interim, permit me to go ahead and read Ifeoma's citation whilst we sort all of this out. Our speaker today is Ms. Ifeoma Ottah. Ifeoma is General Counsel of MTN, and she'll be speaking to us today on building a legal career in the corporate world. Ifeoma Ottah is a versatile attorney qualified to practice in Nigeria and New York with an astute and analytical legal mind and over 15 years of hands-on experience in advising and helping corporations to solve problems across several markets and sectors, such as financial services, private equity, healthcare, telecommunications, technology, and digital services. Ifeoma is currently the General Manager Commercial Legal of MTN Nigerian Communications PLC, the largest telecommunications operator in Nigeria, where she leads a remarkable team in effectively and proactively mitigating risks, managing crises, protecting and commercializing the company's huge IP assets, and improving efficiencies in the business within the very challenging and sometimes fluid regulatory landscape. A known problem solver and crisis manager, Ifeoma at the GC has led MTN's Nigeria's legal team through some of its most revolutionary periods in history. In 2021 and most recently in 2022, Ifeoma has been identified as one of the world's leading in-house trademark professionals by WTR 300, the world's leading corporate trademark professionals, produced by World Trademark Review, WTR London. We're still waiting for Ifeoma's system to be sorted out, and hopefully she's able to join us in a moment. Whilst we are waiting for Ifeoma, I just want to say to all of you that in the coming weeks, we'll be announcing an initiative and a major incentive for all those who have participated at all the trainings that has taken place on this series. So the president of the MBA had a very gracious prize for those who have attended every training and for those who attend every subsequent training from today. If he joins us later, he will announce the prize. If not, on Friday or by Friday, we'll let you know where we are with things. We thank you generally for having been part of the series, and we encourage you to continue to participate. And I hope that the takeaway has been good. I mean, in the interim, if people can give us an impression of the previous trainings or make comments so that we keep the conversation going till Ifeoma joins, then that will be good. Or if there are general questions that people want to ask about the Institute of Continuing Legal Education, about the trainings or proposed trainings, or what we do, how we do it, that'll be good. And I think it's important to make the point that this is the first time in the history of the MBA that we've had this kind of series, the hand-holding series. And the idea behind it is actually to train and equip new members to of the bar around the issues that they would have to contend with while they're training. So yeah. So it's indeed the first time that we are doing this. I'm seeing. Okay, so somebody has said, good afternoon. Please, what is the procedure for joining any of the MBA committees? Okay, I think Ifeoma is back now, but very quickly, people, so the MBA, we have a number of standing MBA committees and a number of ad hoc committees also, but people don't join committees willy-nilly. However, we have the different sections of the MBA. You have the section on business law, you have the section on legal practice, and then you have the SPIDL. So I think what we'll do is to also circulate a note on our contacts to join them. But if you go to any of their websites, I'm sure you can join. Yeah. Well, thank you for that question. Very educative. Yes, indeed. Trainings like this will be held subsequently, but I don't reckon that we'll have trainings for handholding again. There are quite a number of trainings that are planned going forward in insolvency, in criminal procedure, in intellectual property, in digital transformations, and so on and so forth. So there will be monthly training sessions, yes. If I might, are we sorted now? I think you're muted. Great. Can't hear you though. Hello, if you try speaking, so we'll see whether your audio is sorted now, because we can't hear you. Can you hear us? Okay, so that the question about joining at the branch level, once you pay your branch dues, you become a member of the branch. And I ask you to look out for the chairman or information of the chairman or secretary of your branch. So that's easily done. Regarding the slides, you get all the slides in one pack at the end of the entire session. So everybody who is logged in even once will get it. If you will still can't hear you. Maybe can you hear Ifeoma?
No, not at all. But it appears she's speaking.
Yes. And some of the branches have a partnership with Icle, but we're trying to work out something with them at the moment. The person who read that is yeah, the issue of minimum registration, that's an ongoing conversation. The president is working with the attorney general so that an executive order can be made regarding it. But yes, it's an ongoing conversation. Which branch are you at? Okay, Buhari branch. Sarah, can you respond to the person with from Buhari branch with the number of their chairman and the details? Yeah, you should have the number, Sarah's. On the chat box, somebody's asking for details of chairman of Buhari branch. We're happy to take more questions as we move along. No worries, Ifezu. Thanks.
Hi.
Fantastic. If you heard you for a second, just 1 second. Might need to adjust something. We're not hearing you at the moment again. If we can't hear you for some, we still can't hear you. We heard you briefly for a second. So something, you were probably getting something right. Okay, this is not working well. The speaker will be changing devices, so hopefully we should be able to start in a few seconds. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you, Ifezu. Thanks for your kind comments. Congratulations on your graduation.
Can you hear me?
Yes, if I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, my apologies for that.
Yeah, so I've done the introductions already, and I think we're all ready now to go. So thank you very much and welcome. So permit me to introduce the speaker, Mrs. Ifoma. Ifoma, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now I'm just going to try to share my slide. Hopefully that will not be a problem. Share screen. So I'll share from my computer and then I'll talk to you from my phone. Let's see. Shit. Okay, let's stop wasting time. If perhaps you can just send Tobina, please, if you can send a link to, there's a colleague of mine that is actually on standby to share the screen because this is not working for me. Okay, let me start.
Okay.
Again,
all right. If you send me the details, I will. Wole, can you share the slides yourself? Wole?
All right.
Okay. You guys have slides, right? Even though I tweaked it around. Yeah, just share those slides. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for making the time to come listen to this presentation. My name is Ifoma Yuta. I'm the General Manager Commercial Legal for MTN Nigeria. I'm going to be speaking to you today about building a career in the corporate world. Now, I often get amused when people say that, well, Ifeoma, you're not practicing law. And it just, it just cracks me up because there are different ways of law practice. You can actually choose the direction in which you want your law practice to proceed. And even before I went to law school, I always wanted to be a corporate attorney. I wanted to be a general counsel and all of that. And somehow I have followed in that footsteps. It doesn't mean that it all came easy. It didn't all fall into my laps. I had to do the work. I had to put in the time to be able to be where I am today. So in terms of the outline, we're going to talk about the role of the corporate counsel, which is continuously evolving. It's very nimble and agile. And then we'll talk about the toolkits you need and the major responsibility of the corporate counsel, which is crisis management and all of that. And so in the role of the corporate counsel, before now, the corporate counsel would do litigation, handle draft contracts and just generally give advice. And then you will say, well, it's not legal. I'm sorry, this is against the law. You can't do that. The company can't do this. It's sort of like a matron, using the big whip to commandeer the company and tell them what they can and cannot do. But all of that has since evolved and all of that has changed. The corporate counsel is more like a business enabler and a strategic partner for the business. According to the Association of Corporate Counsel, the findings of the Association of Corporate Counsel support a discussion that started in the 80s regarding the transformation of the role of the corporate counsel. An in-house counsel wears many hats. You wear multiple hats as a modern in-house counsel. You're a legal advisor. You're a gatekeeper, you're the conscience of the corporation, you're an ethical advisor, you're a thought leader, you're a risk manager, you're a mentor, you're a coach, you're a crisis manager, you handle internal investigation, litigation, you do corporate compliance, you do everything. I often tell my team that the only thing a lawyer cannot do is to open a woman up and bring out the baby. But if they write the manual specifically enough, I'm sure we can do it. So the law degree in and of itself gives you a powerful, powerful platform from which to proceed and to actually achieve and accomplish whatever ambitions, career ambitions you set out for yourself. So using my current organization as an example, we have like we run a law firm, a special practice with only one client and one client alone, and the client is the corporation, and that is who we are held to defend and to protect and to enable. So we enable the business to accomplish what it needs to accomplish. But for you to be a business enabler, you first of all have to know what the business is about. You have to have a knowledge of the industry in which you're playing. You have to know about the products and services of the company. You don't leave it to the marketing people or to the sales people or to the network people or to the techie people. You have to know it, because for you to be able to defend something, you need to understand it intrinsically. You need to understand the core of what it is. And then you have to also understand the culture of the business. You have to understand the geography and the political environment where your business operates. You have to understand the VUCA environment. For instance, Nigeria, it is arguable, is a VUCA environment. Most of Africa, in fact, is. So you need to understand what it is that makes that region tick. What is it that the government expects from you? What is it that the regulators expect from you? And you need to sort of like guide the company to be able to achieve those, such that there are no compliance situations in order to avoid sanctions and fines. Now, all over the world, every business exists to make money. And when you want to get FDIs or even investors, regular investors to invest in your business, they're going to be looking at your compliance status. They're going to be looking at what kind of corporate citizen you are. Do you obey laws, or do you operate above the law? Do you consider yourself too big to respect the laws of the land in which you operate? And so you need to ensure that the company you work for is obedient and compliant to rules and regulations. And so in compliance to rules and regulations, you are going to come to certain crossroads where the company's objectives are at cross purposes to the laws of the land. For instance, let me give an example. The company, maybe you work for company A, and company A wants to drive from Ikoyi to Ikeja, and you want them to go through Third Mainland Bridge, and they're going to spend 3 hours on Third Mainland Bridge before they get to Ikeja. But when they get to Ikeja, they're going to make a revenue of, say, 10 million naira. But so they'll make a revenue of 20 million. But they want to go through an alternative route, maybe go through Awolowo Road and all of that, and then get to Ikeja, and then they can make 10 million. So they'll get to Ikeja in about an hour and they make 10 million. But they go through Third Mainland Bridge, they waste 3 hours and they make 20. So you need to be able to sell it to them. Even if it's going to be that same 10 million, you need to let the corporation understand that it is better to make the money in a clean way, in compliance with the rules and regulations of the location and the land where you operate, even if you make less revenue, or even if it takes you a longer time. Because guess what? You might go through the faster route and make more money, and then you pay it all in sanctions and fines to the regulator, or you find yourself in court trying to fend off claimants and all of that. And quite frankly, businesses do not exist to be in the courtroom. You exist to be out there making money for your shareholders and other stakeholders. So in terms of the core focus areas of the in-house counsel, you're looking at contract management. For instance, in my organization, we draft all our contracts from end to end. We don't use external help to draft contracts. And we do like 10,000, 20,000 contracts in every financial year, because we have a lot of vendors. And we envisage that if we have to use external help, then the budget of the legal function will go through the roof. And we all know that we are constantly being told that the legal function is not a revenue generating function, it's a cost center. So we try to balance it out. However, where there is a specific project that requires a lot of hand-holding and requires a lot of expertise, where you have to get tax professionals, construction experts, and all of that on the table, then of course we'll convene a project team to do that. And then of course you have to also deal with litigation management. You have to manage litigation. I mean, no matter how frivolous it is, somebody somewhere will find you offensive, will find what you do offensive or what you say offensive, and they'll go to court to challenge that. So an in-house counsel, a corporate counsel, needs to understand the intricacies of the litigation. You need to understand the nuances of court. So you cannot disregard litigation because you're in-house and just focus on corporate commercial. No, that's not going to work. You have to understand how to handle litigation that arise from commercial transaction, commercial litigation. That's different from dealing with maybe say fundamental human rights related litigation and probably family law and divorces, matrimonial causes and wills and all of that. But in fact, as an in-house counsel, a corporate counsel, you need to be an all-rounder. You need to be almost like a jack of all trades. This is, I think, one of the exceptions where they say that a jack of all trades is a master of none. To an extent, you have to be a jack of all trades. You have to know whatever it is that you need to know in order to competently and effectively defend and protect the entity that you serve. Remember, I told you initially that it is a special practice where you have one client, and the client is a company. Now, just to digress a little bit from the functions, your client, when I say that your client is a company, I mean the entity, which is a legal person. It has no hand, it has no feet, it has no mouth to speak for itself. And so you're going to be speaking for it. So your client is not the officers, your client is not the employees, your client is the company. And so where an officer of the company is taking steps, trying to do something that is across purposes or would adversely affect the company, then you need to side with the company. But in saying that, you also need to understand that the company and the CEO are one and the same, because the CEO is the alter ego of the company. So whatever affects the CEO affects the company, and whatever affects the company affects the CEO. So to that extent, you would also have to take steps to make sure that you protect the CEO, whoever the CEO is, or protect that office and protect the person. So whoever the CEO is at every given point in time, you need to protect them. So back to the functions, you also need to understand financial management. You need to be able to read financial statements. You need to be able to understand how the contingent liability exposures arising from litigation affects the bottom line of the company. At the end of every financial year, whether or not you're listed, you're going to have to deal with external auditors. You're going to have to speak to them about your litigation and decide on the materiality thresholds. You're going to have to tell them what you're doing and strategize and educate them on the strategy for managing the litigation. And you would often come across external auditors that will want you to hazard a guess and tell them how a case will turn out in court. And we have repeatedly have to tell them that a lawyer cannot tell you how a case will come out in court, unless you're trying to tell us that we need to enter into the mind of the court, the mind of the judge, but to an extent, you need to provide some comfort to them so that in auditing your accounts, they are able to properly situate, where the liabilities lie and not exacerbate issues. For instance, you may have a claim of $10 billion or 10 billion naira or whatever it is. So looking at the figure, everybody will scream, that's a lot of money. But then look at the facts of the case, look at the facts and look at the law. Does the facts support your position? Does the law support your position? What is the provision that you recommend for the business to make for that particular case? So a provision means that they will put a certain amount of money in a bank account and they will not touch it in the event that that claim were to crystallize or in the event that you lose the fight in court. So these are the things that you need to manage as a corporate counsel. You also need to understand information governance. You need to understand the confidentiality of documents. You need to understand when to put privilege. Even in-house counsels also enjoy privileges and confidential advice as it happens between an attorney and a client. So there's some emails that myself or my team would send out where you will write attorney privilege, private and confidential, attorney-client privilege. So the business understands or the recipient understands that that particular mail is pretty serious and you cannot share it, you cannot distribute it. So all of those things you have to bring to bear as you work for a company. And of course, you have to understand strategy. You have to understand the rudiments of strategy. You have to understand strategy roadmaps. You have to have a vision and a mission for the legal department, which has to coincide with the vision and ultimate goal of the company. And for the most part, as a corporate counsel, you have to be very, very proactive in your dealings. You don't wait for the shoe to drop. You need to be able to envisage that a pair of shoes is about to drop, which means a risk is about to crystallize, and you take steps to mitigate that risk. Even if you cannot completely wipe it away from happening, you need to take a position such that the consequences of the risk will not be as bad as it would have ordinarily been if you hadn't taken any step, because risk will always come. So you need to ask yourself, are you going to sink or are you going to swim? If you want to swim, then you just fold your hands and do nothing. After all, I'm a lawyer. I don't have to get involved in all of this. But if you want to swim, then you need to convene, you need to convene a council, convene a committee, convene a crisis team and begin to deal with it. We'll get to that in the next slide. So I just want to briefly touch upon the information that was recently released by the World Economic Forum. And they shared the top 15 skills that is necessary for the world of today, I think from between now and 2025, but it's very evolving, And I note that, part of these skills, I don't know if, everybody will get the slides later, but the number one skill on the list is analytical thinking and innovation. And then you have active learning and active learning strategies. You have complex problem solving. But I want to just point out two skills on this list: resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility, and then also emotional intelligence. So as a counsel, as a corporate counsel, you have to be nimble, you have to be agile, you have to be flexible, you have to be able to move with the times in terms of the needs of your organization. But that's not to say that you do not protect and defend the law, or that's not to say that you do not support them to protect the law. But I'm saying that you need to find so many ways of arriving at a destination. Like it's popularly said, there's so many ways of skinning a cat. So you cannot stay static and just say, no, it's illegal, because you're a business manager, you're a business enabler. So you have to find a way. So if the way they want to do it is illegal, look at the law. What are the laws that govern your area of operation? What are the laws that govern the industry where you work? And out of those laws, is there a safe harbor? Is there an exception to the law? Is there something you can use to make them accomplish what they want to accomplish? Or in the alternative, can you find another way that is within the means of the law? So you're supposed to problem solve. You know, when I meet people and they ask me, what do you do? I solve problems for companies, because that's essentially what I do. Every day I am solving problems, and they're not always legal. A lot of times you have to use analytical reasoning. You have to use emotional intelligence. These are the two skills that I use every single day of my existence. You know, I have to analyze and analyze and analyze, and I have to apply a lot of emotional intelligence in solving problems. So moving on to the slide on crisis management. Now, according to Andy Grove, bad companies are destroyed by crisis. Good companies survive them. Great companies are improved by them. So in effect, this statement is trying to tell you that whether or not there will be a crisis, you can bet on that. You know, as sure as you know that the sun will rise and set tomorrow, your company will always face a crisis. So the question is, are you ready? How prepared are you to handle it? Are you going to be reactive, or are you going to be responsive? You want to have a state of preparedness such that you are responsive to the crisis. You want to always be crisis ready. So where I work right now, we have a crisis team. For the elections, we have a crisis team. For everything, we have a crisis team. And whenever that crisis crystallizes, we activate that team. And the members of that team will depend on what the crisis is, so that you'll be able to have scenario planning. We do a lot of scenario planning. If this happens, this is what we do. If X, then Y. You know that equation or whatever in math. If X, then Y. So if this happens, then we do this. If that happens, then we do that. You have to envisage. It's almost as if you're playing the devil's advocate. You have to go into the mind of of the other side, or you have to go into people's mind to envisage whatever that can reasonably occur, even the ones that are not unreasonable. You still put it in your scenario planning, and you make provisions for that, you know. And then next slide, the corporate council's role is successful crisis management. So you can have crises in terms of employee issues, in terms of your product, in terms of customer service, in terms of marketing, whatever it is, you know, there's always crisis. So you need to have a crisis heat map. You need to have, so on the box, you're going to have your level of preparedness for each crisis. You're going to have your response. That's what I refer to as the scenario plans. You have a scenario plan for every possible crisis that you can experience. But being a human being, you can never tell it all. You can never plan for every eventuality that will occur. But at least be 70-80% ready. And then the other 10% that you're not prepared for, then you deal with it when it comes. And then after you respond to the crisis, you also go through a recovery stage, and then you go through the final stage of mitigation and prevention. And you need to also get learnings from the crisis you've been through. When you go through a certain crisis, when you go to a certain situation, you ask yourself, why did this happen? What were the gaps that allowed this to occur? What are the learning points for us? How are we going to come up with a playbook such that this does not repeat itself? Or even if this crisis were to reoccur in the future, we already have a playbook. We know what we're going to activate in the event of this crisis, you know? So just to mention, 59% of businesses have experienced crisis, but only 54% of businesses have a plan in place to deal with them. You know, so a lot of research, there's been a lot of research into crisis management, especially on the organizational level. And research suggests that businesses are at risk of losing 22% of their business when potential customers find just one negative article on the first page of their search results. So again, you have to manage your image. Like human beings, I'm going to come to that. As lawyers, you have to manage your public persona. You have to manage how you present yourself, because perception is reality. A lot of times you don't get a second chance for a first impression. And once people see you, they're putting you in a box. They're already making forming opinions about you even before you open your mouth to speak. They are forming opinions about you by the way you're dressed, by the way you've greeted, by the general, your general demeanor and the way you present yourself. And the same thing applies to companies. When you read a certain thing about a company in the papers, in the media and all of that, you may not know anyone there. The company will not have an opportunity to advocate to every single person that has a view about it. So it's better to even avoid that from the get-go. It's better to always put your best foot forward and make sure that what goes out there reasonably represents who you are. And in the end, like I always say, one of my mantra is that the sky is the starting point and not the limit. A lot of people say that only the sky is the limit. I think for me, the sky is only the starting point. There's nothing that the human mind cannot accomplish if you put your mind to it. And again, my other mantra is that impossible does not exist. My team knows that with me. So when I want something done, I want it like yesterday, and you can come and tell me, give me a million reasons why you cannot do it. Well, we can negotiate the delivery period and all of that, but I still believe that impossible does not exist. So whatever it is you want to accomplish, if you've just been called to the bar yesterday, for instance, and you think you want to be the general counsel of MTN, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, guess what? That's not impossible. It is very, very doable. But you have to do the work, and you have to be realistic as to your goals. You have to do the work, you have to learn the skills and the expertise such that when you get there, you'll be able to retain the role. Remember what is normally said, that bullshit can take you to the top, but it won't keep you there. So if you use man, no man, or whatever it is at your disposal to get there, guess what? How are you going to retain that role? Because as an in-house counsel, you don't often get an opportunity like you have in the law firms to come back. When you're at a meeting and you're being asked for your opinion about something, they need you to give an opinion immediately. So even if you do not know the details, even if you cannot give a detailed opinion, you need to be able, off the cuff of your head, you need to be able to give them a concise direction or a general direction of where the matter should progress, and then come back with a more detailed opinion. So, but if you form the habit of saying, okay, I'll get back to you. Okay, I'll get back to you. Guess what? They will lose all respect for you. Because in the world of the corporate organization, being corporate counsel, and in fact, all the experts and individuals that work in a company, you earn your brownie points. You earn your seat at the table. You earn the respect. And how do you earn the respect of your colleagues and your principals? You earn the respect by making sure that the strategies you bring on the table, the opinions you bring on the table, the solution, the guidances you provide, they check out. They check out, because people are going to challenge you. They're going to ask you one question in a million ways. And so if you're well-grounded and rooted in the law, if you're well-grounded and rooted in the knowledge of the field you operate in, then you'll be able to also answer them, give them the same answer in a million ways. Just stick to your guns. Make sure that your right is right, your yes is your yes, and your no is your no. Because if they begin to suspect that you're variable, if they begin to suspect that you move with the times, you move with the wind, then you have lost all credibility. There are some people who are afraid of maybe standing up to superiors and challenging them. For instance, you sit at the table at a meeting, and maybe your CEO wants to do X, and you tell him, no, you can't do X, it's not proper, let's do Y. And he insists on doing X, you also have to insist on doing Y. And if they continue to insist, the astute corporate counsel will say, you now give him that advice by email and tell him to please indicate that on the advice of counsel, he has insisted on doing Y. So what that does is to give him a reality check, because when you have put it in writing, he's reading it in black and white. He's going to then ask himself, he will do a cost-benefit analysis. Is this risk what you're going to do? Why don't you follow your counsel or find a way to reach a common point? So and that's why at every point in time, you have to have your ducks in a row. You have to know your stuff. There's no way around it. And knowing your stuff means that you have to read books, you have to learn. You've gone to law school, you've done your bar exam, you're now a member of the bar. Now you begin to learn, now you begin to study, and you don't wait for your organization or whoever to offer you free trainings. You need to invest in yourself. The money that you're earning now, at the beginning of your career, money should not be a factor. I'm not saying money is not important, it needs to pay the bills, but it should not be the deciding factor in taking a role. You need to learn, you need to be like a sponge and soak up everything that you need to soak up. Remember, you have an end goal, you have a target to be the GC of wherever, or to be an SN, whatever it is you want, whatever direction you want your career to proceed on. You have to take the steps and make the sacrifices that are required in order to achieve all of that. And then so as of today, then we ask ourselves, what is it that matters most? What are the skills? What is it that you need to continuously bring to the table? In terms of bringing your best foot forward every day at work? You have to be patient. You have to be extremely patient. I have been in meetings where my advice is being sought, and then I'm listening for 10 minutes, and then people are still rigmaroling and going round and round and round and round and round. And patience is not one of my virtues, I can tell you right now, but I'm increasingly self-aware. I know what triggers me. And so I have also become self-regulating. So I know when to push the brakes and just be extremely patient, but I also know when to, hurry people along. So you can be at a table, you can be at a meeting where people need your help about something, but they're not even able to articulate what it is that they want from you. And so you need to sift it, amongst the information that you've been given, everything that's been said on that subject, and then you need to ask a lot of questions. Sometimes you have to ask closed questions, sometimes you have to ask open-ended questions, but ask as many questions as you can, and then you begin to form a story, you begin to form a theory, and then using the IRAC method, you begin to arrive at the legal risk or the legal issue and be able to advise. So you have to be patient. You can't hurry them along, because don't forget, they do not have the legal skills and the legal training that you have. People are always first to say, well, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know. So you have to cut them some slack and understand that they're not lawyers. They cannot reason and analyze matters the way you do. So allow them to express themselves in their own words. I always tell people, okay, tell me what your problem is. In your own words, tell it to me. And then you'll be able to properly situate it and figure out how to proceed from there. And then, of course, you need to be commercially aware. You need to know how to negotiate transactions. You need to understand the things that will potentially impact, the place you play in. For instance, if you're in a technology company and you want to be the general counsel, you have to know intellectual property. Intellectual property is the core of the existence of any technology company. You're constantly producing intellectual property, you're constantly using third-party IP assets and IP rights. And when you infringe of those rights, the money is a lot. It's a lot of money in any currency all over the world. So you have to be able to know all of that, know how to do intellectual property due diligence, know when to be able to trigger indemnity provisions in your contracts, and know how to tighten up the screws on your indemnities such that whoever is providing services to you will have to think twice or sometimes 3 times before they begin to think of infringing on IP assets. And then, of course, capacity building, you have to hire the right people for your teams. So I've had a lot of young lawyers ask me, if I'm just fresh out of law school, do you think you can hire me into your team? And it's always like a catch-22 for me. On one hand, I want to support to help you progress on your career. But like I always advise, spend some time at a law firm. Spend some time at a law firm. Then you'll be grounded, because when you go in-house, there's nobody there to teach you. And nobody has time to allow you to learn. From the day you arrive, you're expected to begin to give legal advice and solve problems. So you don't want to make the move too early. If you're so minded to be a corporate counsel, you want to spend the time at a law firm to understand the intricacies of the law, to understand how to properly situate issues. So when they bring an issue to you, they're not going to tell you it's a breach of contract. They're not going to tell you it's an IP claim. They're not going to tell you it's a tort. They're just going to tell you the story. They're going to tell you this and this and this and this has happened. We need you to solve it. So you need to then pull out the problem from your legal mind. You're going to be able to say, oh, this is a nuisance claim, this is a trespass, oh, somebody is telling me to move out, they've asked for a claim of X amount because I've not paid my rent, or they're saying that the landlord I've paid the rent to is improper landlord, and all of that. So you need to be able to situate the problem in your head. And so you need to have the proper team, you need to have the appropriate team. For instance, in my office, we're a team of over 20 lawyers. So I think we're like a mini law firm, right? We have the IP team with IP experts, and all they do is intellectual property, from transactions up until litigation, intellectual property. We have the litigation team who deal in core litigation. And we have contracts team who drafts our contracts. And then we have the business partnering team, the legal business partnering team. So we came up with that because we realized that you have to be proactive in managing your risks. And how can you be proactive? By working closely with the business, the business units that you operate, you support. So you have a handshake with them, you interlock with them on a regular basis to know what they are working on, to know what their pain points are, to know what their top of mind situations are. Then you'll be able to support and help them. And then we also have the claims and alternative dispute resolution team, because we're also minded that we really don't need to go to court. So if we can resolve issues using ADR methodologies, then that's cheaper. That saves a lot of time for us, and then we can move on. And since we set up the ADR team, I'm happy to say that our quantum of litigation has significantly reduced, because we're able to nip things in the bud. So you need to look at the whole organization where you're operating. And I mean, it's not a one size fits all. It doesn't mean that what works for company A will work for company B, but you always have to continue to challenge your assumptions and be nimble enough to change your strategies if what you're using doesn't work. And then you have to have emotional intelligence. I mentioned the emotional intelligence is like a whole day affair. You have to be emotionally intelligent, not just as a lawyer, but as a human being. In dealing with people, you need to understand that emotions, as human beings, we're emotional beings. And a lot of times our emotions direct our actions. So you need to be able to harness your emotion positively in your relationship with other people. And a lot of it is commonsensical, really. You need to be able to know when to speak up and when to keep quiet. If you're at a meeting and voices are rising, you need to draw back. You need to hunker down and take a step back. Give yourself some breathing room, go away and come back. When you're going into a negotiation, a meeting and all of that, what is your partner? What's your best alternative to a negotiated agreement? You need to have all of that already down pat, such that you're not being too emotional, you're not taking it too personal, because in the end it's work, and your relationship with those people, whoever it is that you're transacting with, is important, and it needs to survive whatever circumstances you're dealing with. And then of course you have to have the right attitude to work, you have to have technology proficiency, and you have to have the right network of people. I think I'm going to talk about network further down, in the slides. But these are things that you need as a toolkit for your daily survival as a corporate counsel, and indeed any counsel for that matter. And then patience. Okay, I'm just going to rush through this. He that can have patience can have what he will. This is a quotation by Benjamin Franklin. So again, like I said earlier, patience is golden. Sometimes when you're patient, they say, if you're patient, you can take away the chunk of the meat. But the truth of the matter is that you need to also find a balancing act, because it's not all the time you have to be patient. Sometimes when we're going into a negotiation meeting, my team and I, we play the devil's advocate. So we have some people who will be good cops, some people will be bad cops. Sometimes I play the good cop, sometimes I play the bad cop, depending on how we want to situate it. So you it's like a dance. You have to find your rhythm, and it's not one size fits all. Every situation is different. Every individual is different. The way you handle Mr. A is not necessarily how you handle Mr. B. So you have to know who you're going to meet with. Thankfully, technology helps us. We have Google, there is LinkedIn. I'm not mentioning Facebook and Instagram because I don't do those. I don't think people should spend too much time on social media, but that's just my views. But I am on LinkedIn, and then of course I use Google as well. So if you're going into a meeting with somebody, you need to Google them. You need to get the very minimal information about them. And if you know someone who knows them, then call the person up and say, hey, I have such and such and such with this person. What kind of person is he and all of that. That would help you to manage the conversation, and that will help you to manage the outcomes that you seek, especially if it's a negotiation situation where you require something from the person. And then you need to be commercially aware. I'm going to skip that for the interest of time. I've spoken about that. And then you have to have the right attitude to work. Yes. Your attitude and not your aptitude will determine your altitude. This is a quote by Zig Ziglar. So it segues into emotional intelligence. You know that the research has proven that emotional intelligence and not your EQ, which is emotional intelligence, and not EI, which is your book knowledge intelligence, will determine your altitude or your successes in life. There's a reason why in a lot of times you have people who have graduated with a pass or with a third class, and they are bosses to people with a first class. There's a reason why. Even when you do psychometric tests, when you're joining an organization, you do psychometric tests, those questions throw up a lot of things. Being a first class candidate, please don't get me wrong, it's good. It's good to be at the top of your game, but it's good to also match it up with having the right attitude. Everything is not about 2 + 2 is 4. Yeah, we know that 2 + 2 is 4. It's not about, okay, so if 2 + 2 doesn't make up to 4, then you move on. You need to understand that there are some gray areas in life. You need to understand that the way you come across to people, the attitude, the way you treat people, the way you make them feel matters a lot, because it can make or mar your relationship with them, especially your principal. So you need to always have that at the back of your mind. Robert Greene wrote a book, The 48 Laws of Power. He has also written one recently. I don't know how recent it is, The Laws of Human Nature. You know, those books, even though some of them seem evil on the face of it, but it's good to know those laws so that when people are using it against you, you'll be able to know and take steps to neutralize them, you know, just saying. And then capacity building, you need to read, you need to write. These days, you read some articles or some letters from lawyers and you are appalled. You're wondering what law school they went to. You know, there's typos, there's grammatical error, there's spelling errors. I mean, it's just so embarrassing. As a lawyer, your work product is what you write. And oftentimes, you're not going to be there to defend yourself when people are reading your work product. When you've done an opinion, when you've prepared a court process, whatever it is that you put in writing. So you want to make assurance double sure that there is no gap, there's no room for error. For a lawyer, I believe that perfection is the only standard. There's no room for anything else. So you always have to put your best foot forward. If you have to go for training for legal writing, if you have to go for training for whatever training you need, you know, just look at yourself, access your capabilities, access your strengths and weaknesses, and intentionally take steps to attend trainings that would provide or succor the gaps that you have, you know. And then again, emotional intelligence. I spoke to this earlier. So let me give you like some experiences we've had. There are some lawyers who work for organizations, not necessarily my organization. They are transactional rather than relational. So I consider that to be a negative demonstration of emotional intelligence. So you're representing an organization, or you're representing even an individual in whatever method, in court or in a transaction, in a negotiation or whatever. You have to build a relationship. You have to have some kind of relationship. It shouldn't be, I do your work, you earn your fees and you move on. You need to try to build a relationship with your clients. When I used to work at a law firm in the US, you know, when our clients go on vacation, you know, when they invite you, you literally have to go. You know, you get involved with their families, especially those ones that are really great rainmakers for the firm. If they bring a lot of billable hours, then you build a relationship with them. And because they've gotten so used to you, you know their life intricately, inside and out. A lot of times when they have important events, they want you to be there. And you need to cancel whatever else you're doing to be there. So I think I would like to see a situation where our lawyers, Nigerian lawyers, and the young ones that are coming up, take relationship building very seriously. Let it be at the fore of what you do. Build relationships. Those relationships that you're building today, it may not pay off today or tomorrow or next year, but guess what? It will eventually pay off. You know, like Colin Powell said, you need to surround your life with the right friendships. You need to make friends with the right set of people. So now I'm not saying that you should suck up to people. I'm not saying that you should bootleg. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I'm saying that you have to be intentional about your network. You have to be intentional about the people you allow in your personal space. You have to be intentional about the relationships you keep and the way you relate with people around you, be it your clients, your friends, and all of that, but not especially your clients. I've had instances where we have a legal problem. And then I'm like, oh, which lawyer is going to do this? I just pick up the phone. I'm like, oh, no, this person, you know, because we talk all the time. You're comfortable with that person. The person puts your mind at ease. You like the way they are disciplined in their orientation. You like their words. You like the way they present. So you are able to trust them to handle that situation for you. And you're able to trust that if it gets into the public arena, if it gets into the public domain, you know that that person is going to protect and have your back. But somebody who is trained, somebody who you really do not know, it will be very, very difficult for you to trust them with your strategic issues. And those are usually the issues that earn the most billable hours. Those are where you pay the top dollar. to be able to protect yourself. You want to give those cases to the people that you trust. I'm not saying they're necessarily your friends, you know, but you have a relationship. You know these people. You can hazard a guess as to how they view life and how they can react in certain circumstances. You know, so yeah, this slide then is talking about EQ versus IQ. I mean, there's a lot of research about that. You know, EI is, you know, you bring people together to motivate them and all of that, but EQ is the ability to harness emotions, ability to direct your relationship, ability to manage to intelligently handle situations and issues such that it does not crystallize into something else, or such that you walk away smelling like roses. It is often said that you can tell someone to go to hell and they go away enjoying the ride. You know, there's a way you come at people. They appreciate you because you have given them respect. There's such a thing as respect for, there's such a thing as the dignity of the human person, no matter who they are, even if they're the cleaner, the driver, the security man, and all of that. Accord them with respect, and those people will always have your back. And if they see something that is going to potentially harm you, they will come and tell you, simply because of the way you make them feel. You know, so again, talking about emotional intelligence, you have to recognize yourself, recognize this, you have to be socially aware, you have to be able to manage relationship, you have to manage situations around you. You have to know what your triggers are as a human being. You have to know the kind of things that people will say to you that will trigger you to react in an annoying way or be upset, and properly situate that such that you're able to manage it. You need to understand that a lot of time people are not coming from a place of malice. People just talk sometimes maybe out of ignorance. They do not know all the facts. They don't understand what has happened before. They don't know the backstory. So you breathe down, take your time, explain situations to them, and sometimes things will change, you know. So aspects of emotional intelligence will be self-awareness, creative problem solving, empathy, having empathy for another human being. I don't mean sympathy now, I mean empathy, being able to put your shoes in another person, to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Self-management and control, values and integrity, relationship building, constructive interpersonal interaction. There's a saying that you cannot judge an Indian until you have walked in their moccasins. You cannot judge. So moccasins are shoes that they are rugged pair of shoes that you can use in the mountain and in very rough terrain. So you have to have walked in someone else's shoes before you can begin to even understand and conceptualize what they've been through. So that's about being empathetic. You know, put yourself in their situation. If it were you, how would you react? How would you handle this thing? How would you deal with it? Yeah. And then we go to network here. So according to Peter Gill, your network is your net worth. So your network is a very, very important aspect of who you are. A lot of times, you know, people have climbed the ladders of power and success just based on who they know. You know, not based on their astuteness, not based on their intelligent quotient or whatever, just based on who they know. So it's important for you, again, like I said earlier, according to Colin Powell, surround yourself with the right friendships. If you know you want to be like the young lawyers who are here today, if you know you want to be a corporate counsel, if that is your ultimate aim, then you need to look for a mentor, look for some mentors, look for some friends, look for some people who have made a success of their career in the corporate world. If you want to be in private legal practice and ultimately you want to become a silk, look for people who have made it to be silks. Look for people who have walked the road you want to walk and ask them how they did it. Ask them what the challenges were, and possibly, you know, build a relationship with them such that they will make it easier for you because they've been through that route. They've walked that road and you want to walk it. They're going to be able to tell you where the loopholes are, where the holes are, where the banana peels are, where the gaps exist, such that you do not repeat the mistakes they've made. So you need to intentionally and actively seek for the right network of people. And then you can also use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a veritable ground to build networks. You know, I would prefer that people spend the inordinate amount of time that is spent on Facebook and Instagram, spend it on LinkedIn. You can get free classes. You can get to read articles. You know what's going on in the world. You know, a lot of times, you know, when people want to do something, people want to hire someone, people want to engage with anybody, you go to LinkedIn. 2 years ago, for instance, we had a very serious transaction for which we needed to do a worldwide intellectual property search. And we did all of our searches. We're searching on a patent. We searched the US Patent Registry, we searched WIPO, ARIPO, we searched everywhere, but we couldn't find what we wanted. Guess where we found it? On LinkedIn. The inventor, we tracked him down on LinkedIn. We sent him a message, he responded, and we're able to close that transaction without any exposure. The product is still running, we're making revenue from it, and we do not have any claims because we took the time. So LinkedIn is a veritable ground for information, for contacts, but you don't also want to contact someone on LinkedIn and say, oh, I'm looking for a job, please, can you help me? That's not, you put the person off. Build a relationship. Remember, you have to be relational and not transactional. You have to show interest in getting to know that individual, in getting to know what they are about, in getting to know them as a human being. And then you can bring up whatever help you need later on at some point, So moving on from LinkedIn. And then you have to be technologically proficient. Like Norman Ralph Augustine says, one of the most feared expressions in modern time is that the computer is down. I mean, look at us. This happened to me today. You have to be technologically proficient. Recently, we were told, the world was told that ChatGPT has passed bar exams and business school exams. And I paused, I'm like, really, seriously? I know what it took me to prepare for the New York bar and to pass the New York bar, including the Nigerian bar exam. Those are the two exams, the most difficult exams I've done in my entire existence. I know what it took me to be able to go through an MBA class and get an MBA, the maths, the marketing, the calculations, and all of that. As lawyers, we don't do so well in maths. And then you have a computer algorithm that does it in a few minutes, So we need to understand that technology has come to stay, but rather than being intimidated by it, I think we need to embrace it. We need to marry it to the extent that it can help us to be better. I know that a lot of lawyers are concerned because of this whole ChatGPT phenomenon, because there was a law firm in, I think it was in New York or DC, that wanted the court to grant them leave to allow ChatGPT to argue a matter rather than live human beings, and it was rejected. I mean, I know that the American bar will fight that with the last drop of their blood. But the point, though, is that no matter how well the algorithm has been done, it is only as good as the data that feeds it. Remember that artificial intelligence is all about data. You bring together a lot of data, and then you train it to do what you want it to do. So, but it cannot be nimble like human beings are. It cannot be spontaneous like a human being. For instance, if you're in a negotiating meeting or you're in court and your opponent does A, you can immediately stand up and rebut whatever it is that they've said. But an algorithm is not going to be able to do that. So the things that are not repetitive, that is where the strength of humans lie. But the things that are repetitive, this is what you do from morning to night, something like a formulaic thing, that is what algorithms and artificial intelligence can do. So we need to find a situation whereby we embrace this such that those things that are repetitive, like filing cases, even drafting contract templates, they can do it. But the things that then involve a lot of thinking, a lot of analytical reasoning, and also emotional intelligence, then the human beings can do it. So I think that the time has come for the legal profession to properly situate their resources such that you know where technology can help you to be more proficient, to be more efficient, and then you know where you can apply the human mind in order to accomplish your purpose. And then we have things that you shouldn't do. These are like the red light zones, the no. Don't be impatient. Don't be overconfident. It pays to be humble. Don't be lazy. Don't deplete your trust bank and be unreliable. Don't procrastinate. Don't be tardy. Don't be disorderly. If somebody in your business or wherever you operate asks you for something and you commit to provide it on Monday, my friends, you need to go through hell and high waters to make sure that you provide it on Monday. You cannot provide it at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, because guess what? They have stored it at the back of their mind that you're not reliable, you're not dependable. But when you give your word and you keep your word, it earns you a lot of brownie points. People will actually say behind you, oh, is it Ngozi? Oh, don't worry. Is it Tobenna? Oh, don't worry. He says he's going to be here on Monday. I'm going to sleep. You can take his word to the bank. That is credibility. That is integrity. And as a lawyer, if you don't have integrity and credibility, you have nothing. Simply nothing, because the clients will not come. And then finally, in closing, general takeaways, I'll just share the slides. I don't have to speak to it, but I really need to focus on this. I wanted to talk to you about the famous speech by the 26th President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, popularly known as Teddy. So he made this speech in Paris in 1910. This is just an excerpt of the speech. This is not the full speech. I wanted to play the audio for you because it is more impacting when you listen to it. Please, I will urge everyone to go to YouTube. It's freely available on YouTube, and listen to it time and time again. It will really, really minister to you. Now, in life, you find people who are critics, people who do not do anything. They exist in teams, in law firms, in organizations, in politics, in churches, in families, wherever human beings operate. Those people are going to tell you what you have done wrong. They're going to tell you why you should have done it this way and not that way. They're going to critique whatever it is you've done. But guess what? They do nothing. They do not have an alternative. So they don't agree with your opinion. Fine, you don't agree with mine. Go do your own. But they will never come up to that. Those are the people that Theodore Roosevelt addresses in this speech, which was given in 1910, and which is so much more relevant today than it was in that day. So this speech, this speech clearly states that how to get you cannot sit on the sideline of life. The toxic is fall into your feet. So please let me just read that. It says that it is not critic who counts. It is not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who are the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who are the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Thank you very much. I'll take some questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ifeoma. That was very insightful. Like I said at the other session, it's often said that we will be the same in the next 5 years, but for the books we read and the people that we meet. Thankfully, the ICLE has offered us platforms to our young lawyers to meet professionals very successful like yourself, to offer the opportunity to learn from you. Indeed, I must thank you. In the chat box, we had a lot of feedbacks and responses, accolades to you, thanking you for the presentation today. I'll take the first question. This is from Mohammed. He says, thank you very much, Ma, for the wonderful presentation. My question is, in view of the fact that most CEOs are not lawyers, how can one, as an in-house counsel, break down issues to their understanding? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. So you need to address them as if you're speaking to a 3-year-old. I think it was maybe Galileo Galilei or some scientist who said that if you're saying something, if you've come up with a phenomenon, if you come up with an opinion or a view, and a 3-year-old cannot understand it, you haven't done your job. So you cannot use legalese in advising them. You cannot use legalese in talking to them. You use everyday language, break it in a way that they will understand. But remember, I mentioned earlier that you would have to earn their respect. You have to earn trust. You have to earn brownie points. So there has to be a trajectory. So over time, they've been dealing with you. You've been advising. You've been providing knowledge and guidance and all of that. And they would have to check and weigh it on a balance. Okay, does this guy even know what he's doing? And let me tell you something. Whenever your CEO comes to you for advice, guess what? They have spoken after, either before or after you advise them. They will speak to a more senior lawyer outside of your organization just to fact check, just to make sure that you know what you're doing. So make sure that you have your ducks in a row. If you're not ready for that conversation, ask for some time, give him like preliminaries and tell him that you do a more detailed opinion. And also try to avoid giving legal counsel verbally. Because in the end, if anything goes wrong, it's going to be he said, she said. So you want to reduce it in writing. Do a memo, do an opinion, an email, however it is that works for you, and then talk it through. Always also have an executive summary, which should be like a paragraph, because a lot of business people, they don't have the patience to read long documents. So you want to do a short summary that properly captures what you're saying, an executive summary, and then speak to it, handhold them, and handhold the CEO and get through get through the issues and speak to him in everyday language that he will understand. As use the business language that he will understand, and he'll get it. Trust me, he will.
Thank you. We have another question from Happiness Okoli, and she says, what is your duty or role to a corporate organization as an external counsel when you discover that a lot of litigation against the organization may have some insider backing or be instigated by information leaked by employees of the company? How do you share your observations and concerns with the organization without offending the internal counsel?
Thank you very much. That's something we deal with every day. So while dealing with an organization, you would have, it takes me back to what I said, be relational and not transactional. You should, I'm supposing that you would have taken steps to build some kind of relationship with them. And so in building that relationship, you would have come to a place of trust. You have one or two members of the team that you can speak to freely. I would recommend that you go to the head of the team. The entire legal team, they'll have to have someone to whom they report. Go to that person and share your concerns. But in sharing your concerns, take baby steps in that conversation and possibly make it a face-to-face, not something you do on the phone, so that you can get a sense of where the person is at. Because it might be that it's the person you're speaking to that is doing all of those shenanigans, you never know. So try to find who that you can speak to, but I totally would recommend that you speak to the organization, bring it to their awareness. And if you have no one in the legal team that you can trust, then maybe you should take it to the CEO, because the legal team will always report to the CEO and to the board. But rather than go to the board, take it to the CEO, but find somebody to talk to so that it will be nipped in the board. That's not a very good place for an organization to be.
Thank you. There's another question from Daniel Ajayi. He says, what's your advice for a newbie that is already working in-house in a construction company without any prior law firm experience?
Okay. Assuming this advice came when you were considering going to the construction company, I would say go and do your time in a law firm, a good law firm. Put in 3 to 5 years there so that you can be seasoned. But now that you've already gone in there, in-house, okay, it's not a deal breaker. So I would recommend that you look for a law firm that you can partner with and maybe do some kind of pro bono work with them. And then also go on a lot of trainings. All over the world, there are trainings, train and train yourself. So unfortunately, our legal education in Nigeria is very theoretical, so you copy notes, you memorize those notes, you pass exams, but it doesn't put you right in the thick of things. So try to do trainings that can give you hands-on knowledge of the areas of law that you're working on. Good thing you're specific, you're in the construction company. So try to look for somebody who is very good in the construction industry, like an engineer, and then maybe an architect, and look for a law firm that handles construction work, construction briefs, and partner with them. Go there for some learnings. You can offer to do maybe 2 hours, 3 hours a week with them so that you can learn then you fold your hands up, get your hands dirty, help them to solve the problem. And in solving the problem, you learn, because it is in doing that you learn. But the ideal thing is to do some time at a law firm before you go in-house. Because when you're in-house, you have no one teaching you. They assume you're a lawyer. They assume you're well equipped to deal with the vicissitudes of the business organization. But being a fresh wig, you do not have the knowledge. So you need to train yourself. You need to spend the big bucks you're any company to train yourself so that you can get up to speed with what's going on there. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you. Celine says, amazing session, ma'am. Please, are there fundamental trainings a prospective corporate lawyer can begin to engage to start his or her career?
Yes, there are. There's a lot of it. I mean, there's several trainings. Please, whoever asked this question, please get my email address on my phone. Call me. I'll give you a whole list of trainings. You know, it's going to cost you, but trust me, it's going to be a good investment in your future. You know, if you want to be a corporate counsel, you need to be able to. You need to, for instance, do finance for non-financial managers. You need to, I would even suggest, if you want to be a corporate counsel, to be a very good corporate lawyer, I would argue that you need an MBA. You need a master's in business administration degree. When you have an MBA, you're able to think like a business person. You're able to understand what happens to the P&L, why the marketing people want to do what they want to do, why the product people are insisting on that product, why the sales people are doing all of that. You will know. But I also understand that it may not be possible to immediately go and get an MBA. So you can do some business courses. I think that the Lagos Business School offers some courses, and there are other training institutes that offer courses. Even the MBA, Institute for Continuous Legal Education, we offer some business courses as well. Incidentally, I sit on that board, and we can help. You know, we can help to maybe structure some kind of business courses that will help our lawyers who are specifically focusing on in-house. Because when they give you a problem to solve, and you have to look at the revenue and the profit, and you have to look at the P&L, you have to look at the audited accounts, or even in meeting with auditors, you need to be able to hold your own. You don't want the external auditor to ride roughshod over you because you're a lawyer and you don't understand numbers. So I would totally recommend that you do those trainings. I can come up with a list and we'll share it through the MBA ICLE. I'll come up with a list of trainings, and I also try to get the locations where those trainings can be had, and we can find a way to distribute it to the new weeks. I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's another question here from Cecil. This, can a law firm serve as an in-house counsel to a corporate organization and do all you have mentioned in your presentation? If yes, how?
It's difficult, not impossible. Remember, I said impossible does not exist. It's difficult for a law firm to be an in-house counsel. So from the get-go, assuming the organization is just setting up and they don't have a legal team, they can have a retainership with a law firm that will do their legal work. You know, and then even when you have even when you have built up your legal team, you can also have retainers. You know, but I can tell you that at MTN, we don't do retainerships. We engage people on project-specific engagements, on litigation, just project-specific. You know, the reason is that there are, in fact, as an in-house counsel, there are things you can't even share with the external lawyer. You remember, you also bear attorney privilege liabilities. So the liabilities you bear to the company, the organization, because again, remember that the company is your client and you're the counsel. So there's an attorney-client privilege that exists between you and that counsel and the organization, sorry. So there's some information regarding certain engagements that you can't even share with the external counsel. Because remember, at a law firm is a team of people. And you don't know where, how, or who, or how, or when information will leak. And there's such a thing as corporate espionage. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that law firms are going to leak your information. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that to make assurance double sure, it is better for an organization to have a legal team that is on his payroll, a legal team that owes privileges to it, and then you can have a retainership with a law firm or engage law firm as the need arises, and then have your in-house lawyer to manage the relationship with the external lawyer. That way, the external lawyer and the in-house lawyer will interlock to be able to defend and appropriately situate the circumstances of the company and protect it. But I personally would not advocate for an organization not to have a legal team, but rather to use a law firm as its legal team, because there's only so far that the law firm, there's only so much that the law firm can do. For instance, I signed a lot of settlement, terms of settlement. And so I put my signature, I put my stamp and seal. Yeah, I was going to mention that, I forgot. So in-house counsel, you need to pay your practicing fees. So a lot of times in-house counsel will say, well, I'm not going to court, I'm not filing processes, I don't need to pay my fees. No, you need to pay your practicing fees. Let me tell you something that happened. So we had a case at the NIC, and it wasn't a case we wanted we wanted to settle the case. So we filed the terms of settlement. I put my stamp and seal and we filed it. And we didn't engage counsel. So on that day, I went to court, the claimant went to court, and we're actually sitting next to each other and gisting in court. And so when the case was called, the claimant had her counsel in court. We didn't have any counsel. And so then the judge wanted my ID card to confirm that I actually am who I claim to be. But unfortunately, that day, for whatever reason, I didn't have my ID card in my bag. I think I left it in the car. But you know what my saving grace was? My stamp and seal, my MBA issued stamp and seal. Because I told her, my lord, I signed the document, I sealed it, please look at it. It has my call to bar number and all of that. So with that, she was able to confirm that I was who I was, and that case was closed. So you have to pay your practicing fees. And then again, there's some documents that an external law firm cannot sign for the in-house people. So for instance, in the year-end audit, you have your external auditors write letters to the external law firm to confirm certain things, to confirm the situation or quantum of potential contingent liabilities. So when that letter goes from the external auditor to the external counsel, and the external counsel is also the in-house counsel, how is that supposed to work? There's going to be some conflict situations. So I don't think it's a very good idea to be in that situation. I think that we need to properly situate the two rules and bifurcate them. Yeah.
Thank you. We have another question from Christian, who says, what exactly are the roles of an in-house counsel in a company? Does an in-house counsel also handle court cases for the company, or is it restricted to the in-house job of the company?
Okay, thank you, Christian, I think. So this entire presentation has been about the role of an in-house counsel. I'm sure you get the presentation through the MBA. You can get the slides through the MBA. But to specifically address the issue of litigation, by the rules of practice in Nigeria, when a lawyer is working in-house, you cannot go to court to represent a client. So the in-house counsel gives the brief to an external lawyer, then external lawyer will go to court to argue the matter on your behalf. However, you strategize, you have to be involved in the strategy of the case. You have to give the case to the proper lawyer. There are law firms that have strengths and weaknesses. There are law firms that are known for this and that and that and that and that. And in the course of your dealings with different external counsels, you'll be able to hazard a guess as to where each of their strengths and weaknesses lie. So you'll be able to make an assessment as to who should properly handle that matter. And in handling the matter, you as the in-house counsel will have to provide the defense. You should not expect that your external counsel will manufacture a defense for you. They are going to, it is the information you give to them that they will use to prepare your witness statement of oath. They'll use it to prepare your defense in court, and you have to review that document. Because remember, the outcome of the case will depend on a preponderance, because it's mostly civil matters, right? So on a balance, are you more believable than the opponent? So have you covered the four walls of that matter? Have you given your external lawyer everything he needs to act? Because he's not a miracle worker. I tell my principals all the time that I went to law school to study law. I didn't go to law school to learn how to do miracles. I don't perform miracles. So his success in court, the external success in court will depend on the level of information that you have provided. So both the external lawyer and the internal lawyer, they have their own functions to carry out in terms of a litigation situation. So as the internal person, you have to provide all of the information, provide the necessary documents, and properly identify the employee of your company that will be able to stand as a witness in court. And then the external lawyer will then have pre-trial conferences, will prepare the court papers, you would review, everything checks out, then you sign. So it's a fine and dance. It's a fine dance. You know, you have to bifurcate the two roles. Everybody has the role that they play. But to specifically address your concern, no, as an in-house counsel, you cannot go to court to defend someone. The scenario I referred to earlier at the NIC, remember I said we didn't engage counsel. We were not intending to fight. We didn't want to settle. The other parties' counsel filed the papers, and I just showed up in court, you know, just to say, because it was supposed to be a consent judgment, parties needed to be in court. And I just showed up in court to say that we're in agreement with what had been filed and we're willing to settle and all of that. So yeah. You cannot take the work of the in-house counsel. I think the rules of practice has properly situated is such that everybody knows the field, the places where they play, and the roles and functions of the legal profession is properly situated. For instance, in the UK, you have barristers and you have solicitors. One person cannot be both. So you can either do the barrister's exam so that you litigate, or you do the solicitor's chief exam so that you're doing in-house work or you're doing transactional work, even if you're in a law firm. But there are a lot of other jurisdictions, like in the United States, such as in Nigeria, where you're a barrister and solicitor in one, and then you can then decide how you want your career to progress, whether you want to play in the courtroom or whether you want to play on the negotiating table as a solicitor. I hope that addresses your question.
Thank you. We'll take this other question from Vivian. She says, could you please recommend books that will assist us to be better in-house counsel for those of us who have such pursuits?
Oh my goodness, you have no idea. I have loads and loads of books. So I'm going to come up with a list and I will share it. You know, I'll come up with a list and I'll share. But you see, the books I'm going to be recommending for you is not limited to in-house counsel. Anybody can read it, you know, and a lot of them are not even legal books. A lot of them are books that teach you about leadership, teach you about common sense, makes you to be self-aware, makes you to know when people are saying BS and to just disregard, you know, books that will make you aware such that when people are doing those things, you're able to identify what they're doing and you're able to take steps to checkmate. So yes, please, I'm happy, very happy to provide you with a list of books. Books are my favorite thing. I'm very happy to do that. I also recognize that it can be burdensome to lug books around because a lot of them are quite heavy. So you can also use e-readers. And when you buy books on e-readers, it's actually much, much cheaper, you know, but I'll definitely recommend books, you know, for you to read and to buy and to you know, to be able to educate yourself better, open up your mind such that you become better lawyers and ultimately better human beings.
Thank you. Amarachi says, please, ma, between masters in law and MBA, which is better?
Amarachi, truth be told, the both, you know. So I have I have an LLM in corporate transactional law because I always wanted to do corporate. No offense to my litigation lawyers, you know, and so from the get-go, I wanted to be a GC. I wanted to work in-house, and so all the steps I've taken throughout my education and trainings and studies after law school has been geared towards that objective, you know. So, but after I got the LLM, went in-house, I realized that there was a gap. I needed an MBA, you know. But you know, like I said before, you don't have to. I mean, it's not a deal breaker. It doesn't mean that without an MBA, you cannot be a competent in-house counsel. That's not what I'm suggesting, please. Okay. But you can take all those trainings, finance for non-financial managers. You can take trainings on accounting. You can take negotiation classes. You can take trainings on marketing. You see, because from where I sit, I do it all. I'm an all-rounder. So when the marketing people bring their stuff, I need to be able to understand where they're coming from. When I'm having meetings with auditors, I push back. I let them know that these liabilities are contingent. They haven't crystallized yet. You know, you have to be able to manage everything that is going to come at you as an in-house counsel. So if you can, I will recommend that you do both an LLM and an MBA. And again, there are some organizations that will not hire you as their in-house counsel unless you have a master's degree. There are some organizations like that. A lot of institutional organizations organizations like the World Banks of this world, the IFCs, the African Development Bank, such organizations, and there are also some other private organizations, you have to have a master's. If you don't have a master's, you're already at a disadvantage. Even if they don't say you have to have a master's, they'll tell you that a master's degree will be another advantage. So what that means is that if you have a list of 80 applicants or 8 applicants, for instance, and 4 of them have masters and you don't, already you're at a disadvantage. So I will urge you to do that if you can. You can do it on a part-time basis, but I will not suggest or recommend that you leave work and go to school. I think you should be able to do both. You should be able to
Thank you very much. I think your audio is off.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if you heard my response. I got lost for a bit there. But bottom line, in summary, I don't think you should choose, but if you necessarily have to choose, go with the LLM, and then the LLM has to be in the area where you want to focus on. It can be intellectual property, it can be transactions, it can be tax, it can be wherever you want to play at, and then maybe later in life you can do an MBA. That's totally fine. Or do some business courses to support the LLM you have, and you'll be fine.
Thank you very much, Ifeoma. There are lots of appreciation for you here in the chat room. We've passed our time. Someone is asking here, how do you go about picking a particular industry to specialize in? And how do you scale up your growth as an in-house counsel? Collins is saying, our movies that portray character traits of a good corporate counsel like Suits advisable, as I find movies quite illuminating. How helpful can they be? I guess this will be the last one where we're pressed for time. Nava says, my greetings to you. May we know the cost of MBA in Lagos Business School? Yes, sir. The 3 questions, ma'am, for you.
Okay, I would find out the cost of MBA at Lagos Business. Incidentally, I ran into the dean yesterday at evening mass. I would find out. I'm happy to find out and let you know. I would also find out some business courses that can be taken, not necessarily an MBA. But you see, what an MBA does for you is that, and an LLM as well, it helps to expand your network. So in speaking to the network, the presentation that we shared earlier, there's a reason why universities all over the world, they spend an inordinate amount of time and resources to build their alumni network. They actively go out to get, high flyers and super successful people to be in part of their alumni. So when you go to a business school, when you go to school on a master's level, even as an undergrad, you join that alumni, and you should be able to walk into that school. You should be able to get in touch with whichever alumni to help you with stuff. For instance, I did my first degree at the University of Benin. So I'm I have a very soft spot for anybody who has gone to greatest Uniben, because I went to Uniben, So alumni is all over, look for each other. A higher degree, a postgraduate degree, is to also have a strong network of people behind you. The Lagos Business School has a strong network of people. When you go to Lagos Business School, you essentially have access to all of the business people, the big shots, the business shots in Lagos and in Nigeria, in fact, the people who make the decisions in the boardroom and all of that. I'm not saying that all of them have passed through business school, but Lagos Business School, but in one way or the other, they will have some kind of affiliation to Lagos Business School. So I'm happy to get the cost. I'm also happy to even negotiate. I'm sure I can work with our chairman to see if we can negotiate some kind of discount for the members of the MBA with the Lagos Business School. I'm happy to do that, because incidentally, one of the professor for corporate governance at Lagos Business School is also a member of the MBA and a member of the BAD, Professor Fabian Ajogu, ASN, OFR. So we'll have that engagement and see what we'll come up with. Now, for the other questions about the one about movies, well, yeah. I mean, Suits is a good and almost on point depiction of what happens in the real world. But you also have to understand that it's fiction and all of that. But yes, Suits, it's very good. Those kind of things, you can get some learnings from them. But you know that in Suits, you also have situations where the lawyers have engaged in some kind of underhand and unethical behavior. And as a lawyer, you don't want to be there. So, but yes, I would totally advocate that, you watch such shows and TV programs. There's also some documentaries, that you can watch that would, ginger you up in terms of your legal practice. But I would recommend books. Read books, and you can buy audio books. If you don't have the time to sit and read them, you can just buy audio. So if you're driving or exercising or doing whatever, you can just listen to those books. Yeah, there was one other question. I can't recall what it is. Can you please repeat it? There were 3 questions. What was the last one?
Yes. Are lawyers in the Ministry of Justice also referred to as in-house counsel?
I didn't quite hear you. Can you take that again?
Are lawyers in the Ministry of Justice also referred to as in-house counsel?
I do not think that they are, because the Ministry of Justice, so you know that the Ministry of Justice represents all the government ministries, the agencies of government and parastatals. And so those are the people that actually represent them in court. We've had matters with the AGF in court, and he sent his counsels. They have counsels, state counsels and all of that. So they are not in-house counsel, because the Ministry of Justice is not a corporate organization. Is not a private company, for lack of a better word. It is an agency of government by which it properly situates the lawyers and legal professionals that will defend and protect the interests of the government. So to that extent, no, it's not in-house. You will actually go to court, but I think that we also have several departments. So if you're in the Ministry of Justice and going to court is not really your thing, you can then decide to do something else. I think they also have, at the Ministry of Justice, you have the Attorney General of the Federation, you have the Solicitor General of the Federation. So there are departments at the Ministry of Justice where you can actually do corporate work, because they also support the government in the transactions and contracts they sign. So you can, balance it and see where you fit in.
Thank you. And I think this is a question you were looking for. How do you go about picking a particular industry to specialize in? And also how to scale up your growth as an in-house counsel?
Okay, so here is the thing, guys. The law is the law. Negotiation skill in a power company will work in a telco, will work in whichever company. So your purpose, really, your focus should be to be well-grounded in the skills that you need as a lawyer. So your negotiation skills, emotional intelligence, analytical skills, be grounded in those, such that whatever industry you find yourself, you'll be able to apply those skills, because the law is the law, it doesn't change. So I would not then say that, I would not advocate that you focus on one particular industry and learn everything there is to learn about that industry to the detriment of others. For instance, technology has been so great, everybody has wanted to work in tech. But Twitter, Microsoft, Google, they've been laying off employees. They've been laying off employees. So you never know where the shoe is going to fit. You never know where it's going to fall off. So you want to be properly situated such that you're able to fit into industry because you're a lawyer. So I've worked in telecoms. Okay, telecoms is, I've worked in telecoms. I've worked in MTN before. I went to the US. I worked with T-Mobile. I came back to Nigeria. I worked with insurance, But my grounding as a lawyer has been at law firms. The law firms I worked in here and in the US, that is what has trained me, because a law firm has different departments. There are multiple departments in the law firm, and so you can go from one department to the other, depending on the area of practice of that firm, so that you can learn. But I would not say that you should just focus on one industry, because you can be in telecoms today, and something comes up in power and you want to move over to power. Something comes up in oil and gas and you want to move over to oil and gas. But the core knowledge of the law and the core skills that you need to be able to operate and uphold yourself as a competent lawyer should always be your focus. So once you learn those skills, then you're fine. And I would also recommend that you join. There's some corporate counsel organizations that it would be nice to join. For instance, the Nigerian Bar Association Women's Forum has just established a corporate council forum, and I happen to be the chair of that forum. So unfortunately, I think it's only open to women. Please feel free to come and join, because we're looking to have thought leadership sessions and share knowledge and all of that, and also mentor the young lawyers that are coming. You can also join international organizations. You can join the IBA, International Bar Association. You can join the Association of Corporate Counsel. You can join. There are several of them. I'll come up with a list and I'll share it. Now, in joining these organizations, another thing that it does for you is that it exposes you. It gives you an international platform to play on. So for instance, I'm in the IBA. I've been in the IBA for years. And then 4 years ago, 2019, the IBA approached me, and the IBA has this relationship with the International Criminal Court at The Hague. So they do a moot court competition all over the world. Law universities all over the world, they do regional competitions, and then the best people from every country will assemble at The Hague every year, and they will do a competition. And the finalists will actually argue inside the ICC court before the justices of the ICC. So I'm one of the judges on those panels. So the final competitions that happen at The Hague every year, I go there and I'm a panelist for the IBA and the ICC. So I got onto the panel because of my membership of the IBA. I'm a member of the IBA. I belong to the litigation committee and several other committees. So as a result of that relationship with the IBA, I now do this for the ICC, and it's been going on every year. This year, the competition is going to happen between June 2nd and 9th, and I'm going to be at The Hague for that. So when you join these associations, it exposes you, it broadens your network, it gives you a larger platform to play on, because you see, the world is a global village now. You shouldn't limit yourself to Nigeria. You should be looking to having clients. If you're in a private law firm, for instance, you should be looking to having clients that are outside of Nigeria. It is totally possible. We should also export. We should have legal tourism, such that we export our legal skills and legal knowledge outside of Nigeria. Because since the Brexit, we have law firms that are continuously coming from the UK to Nigeria. They go to different organizations to offer their legal services. I'm like, we have thousands and thousands or millions of lawyers in Nigeria. Why the heck should we go to London to hire a lawyer? So our own lawyers should also have the audacity to go outside of Nigeria, go to other jurisdictions, offer them your legal services, offer them your legal skills, But it's nice to join all of these platforms. And when you join them, don't be a floor member. Join the working groups, volunteer to do some certain things, to do pro bono work and all of that. That's what exposes you to the limelight, and it will further help to advance your career. I hope I've made some sense.
Yes, you have made a lot of sense. Sitting from here, I've learned a lot from you. I join all our colleagues to say thank you for your time. It's always very inspiring listening to you. Thank you very much. We have exhausted our time, and I don't think we'll be able to take more questions at this time. We'll circulate the slides from the ICLE to participants, and we hope that you will log in again for the next session. Thank you very much, and have a very good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. I do not take it for granted. I'm pleased. I hope that somebody was taking down notes on the things I said I will circulate, so that you can share it with me. Let me compile those lists. I know books, the Lagos business thing, but there are some other things, the trainings and all of that. Please just, shoot me an email or something so I can come up with those lists and share with you, so you can share with our colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye. Please give them my email. If you can hear me, share my email with them.